and welcome to the live. I'm just gonna hang out for a second here as we actually get to 12:30 as we're rolling in. But yeah, welcome, and I appreciate having you here. Um, so, what I want to talk about today is running running your best Boston. So, I just kind of want to talk a little bit about what we're offering, how I would approach things, and hopefully something that will help you out. So, um, I've been fortunate enough to run Boston a few times. I've done pretty well a couple times. I did really bad once. Took a little walk break, and it happened to be on national television because the lead women were going by me. So, yeah, there's that. But it's a tough course. It's it's a course that will reward you if you can be patient, and it will humble you if you are not patient. So, with that being said, I just want to jump into it. So now that you've qualified, oh, and by the way, I, I thought, um, I thought that I was getting chats on here as well. So, hopefully that is happening, but I don't know if it is or not. So, uh, oh, let me open that chat. Okay. All right, guys. I got it figured out. All right. So um, this is gonna work out, I think so. All right. Jumping back into this, so if I will pop back and forth and try to get some questions if there are any. I know it's 12:30 in the afternoon, so uh, there might not be too many on the live, but we'll get it going. So you've qualified for Boston. Now what? And so, it's interesting because I'm recording this at the end of October, and I'm already getting a few emails about doing a lot of work right now, and it's you're still over 6 months away right now. So I'm recording this October 29th, and you're still over 6 months away. So there's a long time, and so we have to make sure that we're planning this out right, because I've already run into it where I just feel like a couple people that have gotten in touch with me, they're just going to be completely overcooked by the time they get to Boston. So what I would this is kind of how I'm working through it with athletes is we're working back from the race date. So we're starting with end in mind. We're going to start from where the race date is, work back to where we need to be to start our actual marathon training, and then kind of figure out what we do in between, right? And so that's going to leave you a couple things like, how much do I actually need? What do we do with the time in between? And then how do we get as fit as possible, but handle the course specifics? And that's really where people tend to get into trouble, because people want to just use Hanson's marathon method, which overall is great. It's going to get you very strong. It's going to get you fit. But I think you run into some problems when you start looking at how the course actually is, and then have to figure out, okay, I did all my tempos on a flat route. So I know what my flat marathon course pace feels like, but I don't know how that translates into running up and down hills, right? And so that's where we've got to look at some things. So when you think about starting with the end in mind, I'm looking at this year or next year. Marathon Monday is going to be April 20th, 2026. So if you work back to 14 weeks out, that is January 12th, which is nice if it's a week or so later this year. So you can start 14 weeks out after the first of the year, which I think benefits a lot of people. And then 18 weeks out would put you right in the December 15th, which isn't bad either. It's certainly doable, but there's been years past where it's, you're getting through most of December, and it's hard with everything going on in December. You have all the holidays, family get-togethers, company parties, all that stuff, right? And so it can get overwhelming to say the least. And so training hard isn't necessarily on the radar. And luckily, it doesn't have to be. And I'll go over this in a second, but because that's the question that comes to mind. So I'm looking at those dates like, okay, so how much time do you really need to get ready? And that's the big assumption. And so I'm telling what my ideal breakdown is this, right? So what three things I'm assuming as a coach, right? I'm assuming that you're starting the plan healthy. If you're not healthy, we've got to get healthy, and then we can worry about a timeline. I'm assuming that since you're running Boston, you're not a beginner. You've gotten your qualifier. You know how to train hard. You've gone through some training schedules. We're not starting from scratch with you, right? I'm not teaching you how to build your volume. I'm not teaching how to do certain things that I would teach you if you were a beginning marathoner. And then I'm assuming that you've got some volume on your legs, right? And you train on a consistent basis. So basically what I'm saying is you train most of the year. You're training for something, some sort of race. You're putting in workouts, you're training regularly, you're putting in decent mileage all year. So we're not worried about, like when you take the Hans's marathon method training plan, you're assuming a person starting from a very low level, and we've kind of got to bridge some things to get that person to where they can handle a certain amount of work and then kind of hold their hand a little bit through the training plan. Whereas with you guys, I'm assuming that you're a little bit more advanced and you already know certain things, you already do certain things. So we can take that and we can shorten that time frame down, right? Since I don't have to completely build you up, we don't need 18 weeks. For the vast majority of people running Boston, I would say 14-week dedicated training plan specifically for Boston or any marathon in that matter is going to be plenty of marathon, right? When I was training hard and I was training at a high level all year, 14 weeks was plenty long, right? Because the reality is you're probably already doing some of the things that we would do in an 18-week buildup. So we don't need to repeat that stuff. We can just build onto it instead of repeating and then making the segment way too long. And that's really where it comes down to, is if we extend this thing out, 18, 20, 22, 24 weeks, we're going way too long on that. And I'm talking dedicated marathon training, right? And that's where people get into trouble. And so what I've done is I've made 14-week marathon Boston plans, one peaking out at 50 miles a week, 60 miles a week, 75 and 100 miles a week, right? So 50 miles a week is a 5-day-a-week plan, which I know a lot of you have asked for. And honestly, like I built that on my wife several years ago ran about what this 50-mile week plan is. So it was 5 days a week, 2 SOS a day. And she ran 327 at Boston. Not a very good day at Boston either, too. So 327 at Boston on that. So, and I think people can go a little bit faster than that, but just to kind of give you a reference point of who that could still work for. And then even, beyond that. So I would say 320 and slower. That's a pretty good plan, right? That peaks out a little bit less than what the Hans's Marathon beginner plan is. However, it's also 1 day less a week. So you're getting that extra recovery, and you're still putting in big runs. You're just giving yourself one more day off. 60 miles a week is about what the advanced plan peaks out at. So you're staying in line with that. So I'd say if you consider yourself an advanced runner, that would be a good run. It's a 6-day-a-week plan as well. And then you have the 75, which is, I would say for most people, that's a person running under 3 hours, man or woman. I would say under 3 hours is on that plan. More in that 250 to 255 range. I think at 60 miles a week, you can still crack 3 hours. But if you're looking to get like 255 and faster, you're looking at probably wanting to be in that 75 mile a week at peak. And then lastly, 100 miles a week. I have, some athletes that are building up to that, and they want to run in the 230s. Like my people who've run well at Boston at that kind of volume have been 235 and faster. So to kind of give you some reference to that, to who should be in what plan or who I built those plans around for. And again, like I said, we're not building you from zero. Like we're not just saying, oh, December 12th, we're just jumping into a marathon plan. No, we have to do some prep work to build into that. But our dedicated marathon plan can 100% be 14 weeks. And I think most people thrive a lot better on that. And so, given that, what I like to see going into Boston is taking that 6 weeks before and focusing on some prep work. And that by prep work, obviously, we're probably talking about hills, right? We want to look at getting our body ready to do hill work. And so if you look at the dates on that, 6 weeks before the start of your actual training plan would be 12/1, and then 4 weeks out would be 12/15. And those will make sense more as we get into, like, we're looking at some different racing scenarios from fall marathon season. But that's just kind of keep those dates in mind, and that'll kind of give you an idea. Ideally, I'd love to see it 6 weeks, but it might not work out that much. Um, and if you do, you could just always start one of my 6 week block plans and then just stop at week 4 or wherever you're at on that, and then jump into the training plan. You'd be fine. But we'll go over some different things on that. So all right, I'm just checking to see if anybody is in there. So all right. So jumping back into here, I do have 6 week hill block plans, and they range from 30 miles a week all the way up to 70 miles a week. So obviously, if you're doing the 100-mile a week plan, you'd probably want to be at a point where you could do the 70-mile a week option for the hills. If you're doing the 50 miles a week, you'd probably want to do the 30-mile a week hill plan, and then anywhere in between for the other two 14-week plans. So I think those are really good options. Let me see what I have here. But yeah, just keep those dates in mind, and this will make a little bit more sense in a second. But just to kind of get an idea what I'm talking about with this. So the whole idea with the hill prep work is that we are looking at just getting you, it's almost like a base plan, right? So we're building the volume up, we're gradually adding more volume, but we're introducing some simple workouts, right? So if you're looking at the video here, there's a 2 week snapshot of one of the 6 week hill preps, right? So it's built a lot like your traditional HMM plan minus a third workout, right? So if you're looking at the video here, you see Monday easy run. Tuesday, we're looking at a specific downhill workout. It's really simple, 8 by 30 seconds downhills at a moderate effort. Easy run on Wednesday. Thursday is an off day. Friday is an easy run. Saturday, I have a long run. And then Sunday, I have another easy run. So you're running 6 days a week, but it's easy volume, and it's going to be spaced out a lot more, right? You're going to have 2 to 3 days in between each one. So we're introducing the work, but we're spacing it out enough so that it's not overwhelming you. We can still build our volume. And overall, what you're going to see out of this is you're going to get accustomed to hills, you're going to get some speed work in, and you're going to build your long run up so that by the time you start the 14-week plan, you're ready to hit the ground running. No pun intended, but you're ready to get after it right away because you've done the prep work. It's nothing that's overwhelming, and it's going to build you up, but it's not overdoing it, and it's going to set yourself up for a nice progress into that marathon plan. So that's the main thing I want to make sure. So that's the big thing, is because a lot of studies have shown that if we just introduce the work, when I'm talking specifically about hills here, if we just introduce the work, the damage we feel is a lot greater early on. And that's common sense, right? Like if you go a month without doing a workout and then all of a sudden you do 400s on the track, yeah, your quads probably hurt the next day, right? But if you do that again in a week, then again another week, like over time, like the actual damage that you feel to your body is less and less, right? And that's all this prep work is doing, is we're going through the general motion of running up hills and down hills to create that damage now, so that when we start the 14-week plan, we can get into much more specific work, and it's not going to take its toll on us that it would have, 6, 8 weeks ago. Right. So that's really what we're looking at. We're setting ourselves up to be able to handle the future work. All right. So now if you need more time than that, so if we're thinking about those dates, right? So if you're thinking back to, you need more time than 12/1, then what do we do? And my observations have been with people that most people won't have much time after full recovery from fall racing to rebuild base volume. And that's true mostly for like late October on marathons, right? So if you ran Berlin, you're fine. Twin Cities, you're fine. Grand Rapids, you're fine. Wine Glass, you're fine. Chicago, you're fine. But like once you start getting into Detroit, Marine Corps, Indy, uh, New York, Richmond, these are just ones I'm thinking off the top of my head. You're starting to run into like we're going to have to probably do a little bit more. But and by this I mean too, right? Like if you finish your marathon, you might have 3 or 4 weeks, and then you have to jump into the hill prep, or you might only have 1 week. And so what do we do? If you have longer than that, if you ran a Berlin or something like that, you obviously have almost a month longer than a ton of people. So we can go into a general fitness or base building, but a lot of times it's really just about just start running again, go through your recovery, start running again, adding your days back in, then adding your volume back in, and then getting to a point where you're prepping to prep for the prep work, right? So you're getting recovered from the marathon, then you're just kind of building back into your routine, and then you're building your volume, and then you jump into the hill prep, and then you jump into and then the marathon program, right? So that's kind of how you have to look at it, is one thing is leading to the next. And a lot of it, if we're working back from that April 20th, now we're getting back to December. Now we're before December. And that is where people tend to have the most leeway that we have to work through, right? We have the most complications that we're going to have to do some adjustments for. So I want to look at some timelines here. So this give you an idea of where you want to be. So October marathons, and I'm talking early to mid-October. So I'm like Chicago would be my end day for mid-October for the most part. Maybe Detroit, depending on the year. Like Detroit probably would have fell in there this year because it was Detroit, then Marine Corps. Marine Corps is definitely like end of October to me. And then so you could take your 2 weeks, off. I've talked about this a number of times where I don't think you necessarily have to take 2 weeks completely off. I love walking. I love doing light cross training, but no real running for at least 7 to 10 days, right? But that's another conversation. So your 2 weeks off is what I would consider your recovery period. And then you would have 2 to 3 weeks building back to your baseline. So like if you go out for runs and you average 25, 30 miles a week, that's when we want to take the next 2 to 3 weeks to get back to, right? Whatever your baseline level of volume is. And that will put you at the end of October to the first part of November. So if you start the hill prep, the 6 weeks hill prep in the 1st of December, then you have about 4 weeks left to bridge. So here, if you've taken that 2 to 3 weeks and you've gotten that volume back, you've already done a few weeks of easy running. Now you could add a 4-week base plan here and you would be fine. It's still going to be, the vast majority is going to be easy running, but now you're talking about adding your strength back in, adding your core back in, adding strides, maybe doing a light workout. Your long runs are going to get longer. So it's going to set you up so that when you start the hill prep, you're going to be prepared to do that. You're not going to be overwhelmed at the beginning of that hill prep. So moving on from there, mid to late October, what I just talked about being more like Marine Corps and beyond, I want you to still take your 2 weeks recovery. I think that's got to be really a non-negotiable for the vast majority of you. I think you have to do it. I've seen it more and more. I don't know if it's the influencers or what, but it's like you see these people just want to bounce from race to race to race. And It's tough, you know, and I even say like, and I'm not knocking on CJ Albertson, but because man, what he does is incredible. But I also feel like he's kind of I think he's choosing quantity. He's ultimately choosing quantity over quality. I think, right? Like, I feel like if he really focused on quality, he could probably be a 205, 206 guy. But he just really loves kind of that. It seems like he just loves to race. So he's just running a lot of races and he's running really well, but he's not probably not running his best because of that. But, you know, teach his own, and it's, you know, it's what he wants. And it's obviously made him a very popular runner. He's done a lot of really good things, but I feel like for him to go over to the next level, he's going to have to look at that. But anyway, what I'm saying is, you know, if you kind of have that mentality where you're just going to do things to thing, you're ultimately going to limit yourself in the long term. And I think that you have to allow yourself to recover so that you can take the next step. Right? It's all about planned recovery. But moving on from there, if you take 2 to 3 weeks, that puts, so 2 weeks off, 2 to 3 weeks of building back to your baseline, that puts you late November. So then you'd really only have like a week, maybe two to run. I don't think I would do a base plan. I would just kind of like make sure I'm getting a long run in and then getting my volume up to where it needs to be, right? You're kind of limited on what you would do with that. So um, that would be where you're at now. Oh, okay. I want to go back here. All right. So I know you already have the question. Can I race before the end of the year? And I think you're going to be shocked. You're going to be shocked, but I think you can, right? I think you can run a couple races. Now, caveat to that is that I really would want it, because I understand now you're talking about turkey trots and you're talking about holiday hustles and things like that. And I think those are fine because for the most part, they're going to act like a workout for you. So you could, I would still do the hills or whatever you're at that point, but I would treat it like you can race hard, but go in there understanding that you're not in peak fitness. It's probably not going to feel super great, but it would serve a purpose. And if it's serving that purpose, I'm okay with it. So that's where I would be with that. So keep that in mind. All right. Yeah, right. So looking at here's what I'm talking about. Focus on volume, adding a longer runs back, maybe light break. But like I said, you're only going to have like a week or two before you start that hill prep. So that's all I would do. And I wouldn't worry too much about adding other stuff in. But as far as running, now, if you're adding core and your strength back in, 100% do it. Go on with that. All right. So now looking at November marathons, you're really looking at just recovering. By the time like you run New York's a tough race. I think you've really got to be careful how much you recover from that. So I would really just take you 2 weeks, another 2 weeks to run, to start running, building your volume back, and then getting into the hill prep um, at the start of December, or even just taking 4 weeks, take 2 weeks off, take your 2 weeks, you know, off after New York, spend a month doing just building your volume back, getting your base volume back up, adding a little bit longer long run, getting to like 6, 8, 10 mile runs on the weekend, and you know, doing that. Then you could jump into the 12, 15. We still have the 6 week base plan, but just do the first 4 weeks of it, and you'd still be okay. And then you could jump into a 14-week Boston plan. You would still be fine. But I would rather see you do the first 4 weeks instead of the last 4 weeks. So that's how I would approach that. Same thing with like like an Indy, because the Indy's a week later this year. You know, somewhere in there, right? That's how I would approach that. Now the last one's going to be Cal International, which is good and bad. I actually have some people running CIM and then turning around and running Boston. First thing I would say is don't shortchange your recovery. Don't try to do Cal and then come right into a base plan or a hill plan. I don't think that's going to work out for you. Make sure you're recovered. Don't force a return faster than you need to. Um, you can start the 6 week prep or a base and just, if you start a 4 week plan and you only do like the first 2 weeks of it, or sorry, if you start a 6 week prep plan, but you only do the first 2 weeks of it, that's fine. It's quite all right. The downfall is you don't have a lot of time to recover and build back up. The benefit is that because to me, Cal, you look at Cal and it has a lot of the similarities that Boston has. And so like with my athlete, I'm thinking about Josh right now, who's running Cal and then running Boston, is we're already incorporating a lot of the stuff we would do for Boston into his Cal training. Right. And so given that, if you think way back to when I first started talking about this, is like when we're cutting a marathon segment shorter, it's because we're already doing some of the stuff that we would do in that marathon segment anyway. And in that reference, I was talking about speed work and stuff like that. But in this case, I'm talking about a lot of the hill work. We're already doing a lot of the hill stuff that he would do for Boston anyway. So he's already spent weeks doing that. So if he just recovers and jumps back into training, he's going to be fine because he's already done all that prep work. It was just going towards another marathon. So we don't need to repeat that stuff now. So if you're running Cal, think about what I'm talking about next, and you still have time. You could incorporate some of this into your training, but and then you've gotten that work in, and you're going to be much better prepared. So, and that's the thing. Like I feel like if you run well at Cal, you can run well at Boston because I feel like it's a very similar in setup, how it is laid out. I don't feel like Cal is a fast course, but Boston can be a fast course as well. I think if you approach it the same way, you're going to do pretty well. The last one I have here is Houston. If you're running the half, I think you could be okay. But if you're running the full, it's such a tough turnaround, right? Like I just feel, man, I feel like if you're running Houston and then Boston, you're looking at Boston as kind of a victory lap type of situation. Like you might just be going to go and run the course, be part of the atmosphere and all that. And that's perfectly fine. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that at all. I'm just saying like with the turnaround, it's going to be tough to say, I'm going to go all in on Houston and then I'm going to go all in on Boston. Cause then you're really forcing timelines that I don't really want to force. And that's not to say you won't be successful, but there's a decent chance that the body's going to reject that a little bit. And that's could be tough on you. So I would almost look at it in terms of I'm going to Boston. I'm having a lot of fun at Boston. I'm soaking it all in. And some people do that their first Boston anyway, because a lot of people are like, I don't know if I'll ever get back here. And it was never really about running fast at Boston. It was really more about just getting to Boston. And that's 100% fine. That's what a lot of people like to do. And then if you qualify again, then you come back. Okay, now I'm going to take it serious and I want to run fast at Boston. So that I see that a lot. But the turnaround to me is pretty tough because I think Houston would be like right at your 14-week mark, and I would still want you to be well recovered. So then you're talking about turning that 14-week segment into a 10-week segment, and that could be. But again, I do understand you've done a lot of the marathon work already, so it's a matter of how well you recover from Houston. But just going back to back like that is tough. It's tough to get mentally prepared for that sometimes, and physically. Sometimes we don't even know, and then all of a sudden we're 6 weeks in and we're like, man, my body's just not ready for this yet. And so you just have to give yourself some time, but unfortunately you don't have time. So I would just be really, really careful if I'm running the Houston Marathon and then turning around and running the Boston Marathon. Okay. So why push the hill prep? I've been talking about it so much. So because for me, it's not about speed, and especially like a lot of the people I work with have really crappy winters. It's tough to get out. It's asking them to get on a track is not going to happen. treadmill stuff, they hate it, but maybe they'll suffer through it once in a while. It's just hard. The time of year is hard. Um, for a lot of people, the weather at that time of year is hard. You're already doing dark mornings, dark evenings. It's you don't have a lot of daylight to work with, and so that's a lot of it. And it just allows us to get the work in that we need to, but not ha- be so tied into structure that we're not able to get into what we want to get into, right? So, um, and like I said before, it's been shown that initial stimulus is hard on our muscle fibers, right? So if we're doing it now and giving our body enough time to recover before we do the next thing, and then even more time to recover before we do another hill workout that's going to have the same stimulus, our bodies react very, very well to that. And so within 4 to 6 weeks, we've completely remodeled our muscle fibers to be more resilient, handle that workload, handle that type of work. And it just makes going into that marathon segment so much more doable. And we can jump right into some more specific work. And it allows us to be much more resilient along the way. But we haven't done so much that we're taking it out of ourselves later on. And then it's also an indirect way to build strength and speed without doing the speed work, right? We can, you've heard that phrase a million times, right? Hills are speed work in disguise. And it's true. It's like you're not running fast, but you're building the muscle fibers, you're doing the intensity, you're building the aerobic capacity, you're helping the muscle fibers. It's a really, really good way to do it. And then, like I said, if you want to run a 5K or a 10K in that time period, I have a few athletes that are doing that in December, going to run 5K at the beginning of December and a 10K at the end of December. And, that's kind of going to be our, bridge the gap speed segment, but we're doing it in midst of the hill prep cycle. And it acts as a tempo run or a threshold workout. And it just helps keep the right mindset, kind of keeps you active, kind of keeps you focused on training a little bit, but not overdoing it. So it's one of those things where it's moderation is key. So it just works out so well for people, and it allows them to get through the holidays. Like I said, we can move stuff around. We can give more time between workouts, and we don't have to be tied 100% into one thing, right? We're able to get some work in, but not be, full training cycle. And I think that's key, because once we get into marathon training, a lot of times we go into marathon training, right? And so our whole mindset shifts. And like anything else, that's only sustainable for so long. And if we just got done doing that in the fall, we don't want to turn around and just start that whole process again right away. We want to give ourselves some time mentally just to unwind from that. And then we can come back even stronger the next time we do it. So in terms of specific hill work that we're talking about, think about this with Boston, right? You have a fast downhill start, first 5K, big net downhill. I see a lot of races get ruined here, just way too fast at the start, and it's easy to do. And then you have a rolling course. Like there's rarely a spot on there where you find just a flat rhythm running stretch of road. You're either going slightly up, slightly down, or you're in hills, you're out of hills, you're going up hills, you're going down hills. That's from 5K to 15 miles. And then you get to 15 miles through 2021. Now you're dealing with Heartbreak Hill. So you're getting into a point where you're already getting tired, and then you have to go run up these hills, and then you're expected to finish fast. And you have a net downhill the last 5K. So if we're already, blown out from what we just did up until 21 miles, we can't take advantage of that downhill. And then it just, we get stuck in a situation where we're hanging on for dear life. But those are really the 4 areas of hills that we're talking about with Boston. And so it's brutal. Like when you look at that, that looks brutal, right? So if I have a fast downhill start, I have all that eccentric contraction, then I'm going up and down, and then I'm dealing with big hills late in the race. It's not a pleasant situation, right? And so that's what we have to prepare for. And that's what I've done with the hill workout. So like when you ask, okay, what's different between Hans's marathon method plan and your Boston plan? This is it. I've built workouts specifically for these 4 things. And I tell you what to do and when to do it. And that's takes a lot of the thought process out of it for you. You can just line it up, do it. So here's another screenshot. It might be hard for you to read, but you have a basic setup of a 14-week plan. And so you have your Monday easy, Tuesday I have tired hills. So I want you to put a bunch of volume on your legs and then go do some hills, right? Sound familiar? So this could simulate your heartbreak hill. Then come back with your tempo run. That's probably going to be on a flat just to keep your legs rested. Then you do your long run. We got a fast finish long run. Why? Because we want to know how to buckle down the last couple miles of a long run when our legs feel like crap, right? And so we're preparing for that. Then we have a day off. Then we have our traditional strength workout. And then you can see here, I space you out a little bit, right? So we're not doing a tempo. We're not going to do long run hard and then an easy run and then a workout and then another workout. No, it's a long run, 10 miles, but that's not traditionally a workout, right? So we're giving you more recovery, and then I'm going to have you come back on a Saturday and I'm going to tell you to rip it. Right? So we're preparing, we're taking the philosophy, but we're shifting our mindset into a Boston specific training mode, right? And so that's how we're setting this up. All right, so we've done the layouts. I like 14-week plans for most people, 6-week hill prep if we can, but we've talked about how we can, make that a 4-week hill prep if we have to, and then a 4 to 8 week base plan, maybe a plan, or maybe just building your volume. It doesn't really matter. Or so you could lay out those plans yourself, or you can go into our Boston training group, put all that stuff in for you, and we have the links to. I'll put the links in the notes on there. So while you're looking over this is everything that the plan offers. I'm going to put some links in here in the chat, but you can see everything you get with the plans, right? All right. So the links are in there. If that's something you are interested in, let me jump back into the slide here. So custom daily paces, drag and drop tweaks, structured workouts. So that means you can push this right to your GPS watch and it'll have it in there. You can follow along right on your watch. You can print your entire schedule in a calendar view. You used to be able to do it, but it's only day by day, kind of cumbersome, but you can print a PDF or have a PDF of your plan. So you can just print it off and check it off. I know a lot of people like doing that. Set up your daily notifications from Final Surge where you can get it texted to you or emailed to you what you're doing, links to anything that I have in there for you. You can sync it to your calendar so you can plan your day better. You keep the plans for life. Update your fitness you can update your paces as your fitness changes. And then any future updates I do to plans, anytime you later apply that plan again. So if you run Boston again in 2027, you want to use the same plan, you can reapply that plan. And if I've done any updates to the plans in between then, it will show up on your new schedule. And then looking at the training group. So the training group includes the plans, right? But we'll be coaching you, right? So I'll be doing log checks. We have a private community with everybody who's running Boston, whether they're a coached athlete in our team LHR or you sign up for the training group. You're in there. We do a lot of discussions. I point you to things that you should be looking at each week. I'll talk to you guys about strategy, answer questions, all that good stuff. So it's really, it's the plans, but it's also getting a little bit of a coaching component to that as well. So I will be able to look at your Final Surge training logs and give you comments. I'll be able to check in on you. If you have questions on something, you need help on moving stuff around, what you should be doing, we can handle that. And I can just go right into Final Surge and do that for you. So there's a lot of good stuff going on there. So plans, like I said, the links to the plans are in the chat as well as the training group. Given that, that's really about it. The training group starts the 15th. So we'll start 14 weeks out. I'll probably start, talking a little bit before then, make sure everybody's squared away. But the official group would start the 12/15. So if that's something you want to check out, you still have a little bit of time. And I will also include the 6-week prep into the 14-week group, even though we're starting later. So that would be included in the training group as well. And I don't think that's listed here, but I will have that for those people. But given that, I think we're about done. I really appreciate you guys listening to me. Hopefully something works out for you, like whether it's a plan, whether it's joining the group. If you actually just want to get coached, we can do that too. But I think for a lot of people, getting into a Boston plan or the training group would be a huge first step for you. We always have a lot of fun in the group. It's a great atmosphere. But given that, I think that's about it. Didn't want to waste any more of your time. I appreciate you guys watching. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to pop a question in the chat or in the comments if you're watching this after the fact, and we'll get you squared away. So, all right, take care. We'll talk to you later. Bye.